PowerA was one of the first companies to bet on making phone-specific controllers. They even have a specific brand, MOGA. And even though they had it turned off for almost 6 years, in 2020 they came back strong with the release of the XP7-A and the XP7-X, two controllers focused on Android with a clear inspiration in the Xbox One. Now they don't want to stay behind when there is more competition, so they jump into the telescopic train with the MOGA XP7-X, which adapts the idea of the Xbox controller in an strange design, and, like all MOGAs before it, includes an internal battery to charge your phone, this time with wireless charging. Let's see how it stacks up against the competition. Welcome back, I'm Claudio, and this is Zero to Tech. The first controllers that MOGA brought to the market sought to innovate with portable designs, and always an internal battery to charge the phone. And this is not their first telescopic controller. There was the MOGA Ace Power for iOS, released in 2014, which was the last one before going into hiatus and coming back with the XP5. For me, it's hard not to like this last one. It's not only good, it was also the first video on the channel. And almost 2 years after the XP5, MOGA brings us the XP7-X Plus, an excellent combination of letters, numbers and symbols to confuse anyone. The moment you see the box, it's clear that it's a very different controller, with a telescopic mechanism to hold the phone in console mode, so you can forget about the clip. The box design is very similar to the XP5-X, but considerably more robust. It retains the Microsoft licensing. Inside, we first have the documentation, which is quite complete, with very large and clear pictures. Now we have the controller, which looks great at first glance. Under the tray, you can find the two included cables. One long micro USB to USB-A, and a short micro USB to micro USB with a USB-C adapter. Here we have the first complaint. For some strange reason, MOGA insists on still using micro USB to connect and charge the controller. There is no excuse, this is 2022 guys. We cannot just open the controller. It has this plate that you remove upwards to release the telescopic mechanism. The interesting thing is that they thought it well, and it works as a support for the phones or tablets with two different angles. Well thought. Once you remove it, you can extend it to put your phone in, and it grows quite a bit. It can accommodate phones up to 180mm. Just don't believe what it says in the box, because it says up to 300mm. Just an honest mistake from some designer. Upwards there is no limit because it's open, but at the bottom there are two spikes to hold the phone, and on each side, rubber holes that allows the sound to come out. They even fit phones with cases. The only detail is that when it's on, the control shakes a bit, not serious, but it's unstable. There are two rubber bands on the center block, which is the wireless charging module. And let's talk about this functionality first, since it sets this controller apart. It has a 2000 mAh power battery, which is 1000 less than the one on the XP5. If you add this to the fact that the wireless charging is about half as efficient as wired, and that you only have 75% of the charge available for the phone, the rest is dedicated to the controller, we only have about 750 mAh power to charge. Believe me, it's just a breeze for a current phone. To turn it on, we have this switch above, and we also have a button that illuminates the LEDs that indicate the charge. We put my theory to test, charging the Galaxy S22 without playing, and it charged from 47 to 68% in 1 hour and 15 minutes. With AccuBattery Pro, we can see that it was 902 mAh power, a little more than expected, but not much anyway. Below, we also have the switch to change between Bluetooth and USB mode. The latter is used with the same micro USB port used to charge the battery. Unfortunately, it has the same problem as the XP5. It supports X input and direct input only with wired connection. The problem is that, on Bluetooth, again, it only supports direct input. This is not a problem on Android, but on Windows, with Bluetooth, it doesn't work with games from the Epic Store, Xbox and xCloud, not without additional software. It's simply dumb. If they use X input on Bluetooth, magic! Now you could use the wireless controller with all those Windows games. And in addition, you bypass the stupid Apple M5 certification and magically, you're compatible with the iDevices. for which the charger also works by the way. If you ask me, they can remove the wireless charger and use X input via Bluetooth. That will be much more valuable. The last additional functionality is that it also includes two programmable buttons, marked as AGR and AGL. These are programmed using the green button at the bottom, holding it down until the LED starts blinking, then pressing the button you're going to copy, and then the back button that you want to use. It's not very useful when they cannot be assigned to additional functions, but I have gotten used to putting L3 and R3 on these additional buttons, which makes them a bit easier to use. To remove the assignment, you press the green button again until the LED starts blinking, and then press the back button you want to unassign. About ergonomics, although it looks like an Xbox controller split in half, if we are to compare this with the XP5, we see that there are some changes. The handles aren't that long, but especially, they don't have all the space in the back to accommodate your fingers, so it is not as comfortable as you would expect. Even then, it is more comfortable than most of the ones we have tried. The only one that competes is the second version of the Razer Kishi, but overall, while the others feel like portable controllers, this one does feel like a complete one. Now let's go to the test. We started testing the analog sticks, and unlike Razer, MOGA knows that if something works well, there is no need to change it. They are identical to those on the XP5, and it's a good thing. These ones, and the original Kishis, are the best sticks we have ever used in a phone controller. Large, smooth, and a lot of trouble. They're almost identical to the ones on an Xbox controller, and softer than those on the Kishi. Obviously, they have their click, which is clear and loud, and we can see how good these sticks are in the gamepad tester. They're just perfect, with no dead zones, and the pressure is perfectly linear. You can go from 0 to 100% without jumps. The figure 8 thrust is also perfect, with rounded corners as it should be, with no skew to one side. Filling the entire block is easy thanks to how well calibrated it is. This translates into gaming perfection. We tried Fortnite first because it's one of the only shooters that has native controller support on Android. Having such good well-made sticks changes your experience a lot. It's the difference between having to jog adjustments and being able to aim. No unexpected jumps or lack of precision like smaller sticks. We tried it also in classic Halo with xCloud, and the same. The only thing you could complain about is that being so precise, the latency of the service is more noticeable. But still, better than any of the telescopic controllers we have tried. Seriously, these are first-rate sticks, as good as the ones on the Xbox or PlayStation controllers. Now to the shoulder buttons, which are marked with the same letters as the Xbox, LB, RB, LT and RT. These did change their shape. In the XP5, they were identical to those on the Xbox controller. This time they're much smaller. LB and RB now have minimum travel, almost like microswitch, but they still have a very clear tactile feel. The two analog ones, LT and RT, changed the most. The XP5 had buttons that were identical in size, shape and travel to the original Xbox. They just felt a little hollow. But these new ones are much smaller, although the throw is almost identical, which means better than any of the Kishis. What changes the most is the sensation. The XP5 had an even pressure. These get harder the deeper you push them, like pressing a spring, where the more you press on it, the harder it gets. We tested them with two card games, first with Rush Rally 3, and the truth is that there is an advantage to the change in pressure. Normally, you measure the depth out of habit. You calculate the position based on your memory. Here, the pressure of the springs gives you a tactile feedback of how deep it's pressed, and this helps to better measure the throttle and brake, especially when the car has an excess of horsepower. Both in the rally game and in Forza Horizon, they work perfect, as good as the original. Also, the sticks allow you to make very controlled adjustments to the direction, from very soft to all the way. This shows us that not all changes have to be bad. The only thing we can say is that they highlight the lack of vibration, which is common on telescopic controllers since the phone can substitute the function. The controller did change, but only to adapt the form, not on functionality. The important part is that they are still great. No doubt, the analog functions on this controller are top tier. Being licensed, the function buttons has the Xbox icons, with the menu icon instead of start and view instead of select, and the menu button marked with the X logo. All three use switches and make quite a bit of noise when pressed. but the pressing field is clear, and they work well. And the menu button does its normal function when playing on xCloud. The front buttons have the official Microsoft colors and layout. The press sensation is very good, almost identical to the ones on the official controller, or those on the XP5. But now they are a little closer together, and its position plus the height of the analog sticks makes it that you might touch the sticks by accident. But they are just as good, and obviously they work perfectly. Finally, the DPad, where, thankfully, they listened to the criticism and changed it. The XP5 one was very bad. In the test, it marked so many diagonals by accident that it didn't matter it worked well for sequences, because your character kept jumping all the time. For retro and 2D, almost useless. But they learned the lesson. First, now it has a concave shape that gives your thumb a better position and feel. But mainly, they lowered the size of the pivot and used membranes with less trouble. It now feels more like a classic D-pad. And this immediately showed a change in the tests. In the direction test it worked perfectly. It's possible to force mixing directions, but not in all directions, and requires serious forcing. The important part is that it doesn't happen by accident like on the XP5. If you want to make diagonals, you must press both directions. And while the smaller pivot takes a bit of a toll on the sequence test, it's not bad. I have no problem executing the special powers constantly and without fail. It really does feel like a more traditional D-pad. A big applause to companies that really improve their products. I also test all controllers using Mantis, to check how they work in games with no support. This time we tried Call of Duty Mobile, and it works very well. Mantis mapping is not as accurate as native support, but it is enough to enjoy this type of games. And here, better sticks makes a big difference. They allow you to better control your movements, especially very small adjustments. And for emulation it also works perfect. It is automatically configured for AetherSX2 and RetroArch. In Citra, you must do the manual configuration, but it is a problem with the emulator, not the controller. Finally, check out how the N64 controller test draws an almost perfect figure, as it should be, not like some controllers we have tried. It is also Windows compatible, so we also tested to see what can you expect. First, the base that holds the controller closed makes it very stiff. With the base on, it is basically a regular controller with a very strange shape. It doesn't flex like when you put a phone on it. The problem is what we mentioned at the beginning. It only supports direct input via Bluetooth, so it does not work natively for games of the Xbox app or the Epic Store, at least not without additional software. We still mapped it as an Xbox controller, but this mapping only applies to Steam. The solution is to connect it by cable. This way, both protocols are available. When you connect it the first time, it defaults to direct input, but press select and start for 3 seconds, and when the LED indicates it, it changes to X input, and it stays in this protocol. Good, because I see no reason to change it back. And being a little nitpick, we found a strange detail. In the circularity test, the sticks have a little more than a 10% margin of error. This is not too bad. It is only slightly higher than the official Xbox One and the Elite 2. Interestingly, the XP5 had less than 1% circularity error, but this does not affect when playing. Now let's check the price, because it joins the $99 club. It competes directly with the Kishi version 2 and the Game Series X3. The additional card here is the internal battery and the wireless charger, which really is not such a good idea. It is less efficient and it heats up the phone. And when you're gaming, more heat is not what you want. But beside this, when it comes to the most important thing, the controller itself, MOGA did an excellent job. They did not lower costs by changing to switch type sticks. They used what worked and changed what didn't. Now we have a controller that is much better than its rivals. And yes, it is big, but it is not like the X3 is portable. And who knows if the Kishi version 2 will survive for long in a backpack. In summary, there is no doubt it's one of the best telescopic controllers you can buy. And knowing MOGA, it is very possible that you can get it for cheaper before the end of the year. And if you haven't seen it, then go and check the reviews for the Game Series X3 and the Kishi version 2. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember, retro games, modern technology, zero to tech.